Hey guys, welcome back to another video. We've got more Rostermania news coming out. We've got some pretty insane news that has been reported, and we're just basically just going to talk about a few things, and we're going to try and kind of figure out what might be happening in terms of Rostermania. There are a ton of new rumors and stuff that comes out from Ronnie. So the first big one that we're going to talk about is actually the Vancouver Surge here, because they are looking for supposedly a pretty massive rebuild around Pred. Whether or not people agree with this situation, I don't know. I personally, Pred is such an interesting wild card in the grand scheme of Rostermania. I think there are some areas where Pred can really contribute a lot of good things to a team. However, I think with some of the issues that came out of the Black Ops 6 season, it might not be the best to build around Pred, but we'll see. We don't know. I mean, he was a world champion on Modern Warfare 3, and since we're going back to a Modern Warfare title, being in Modern Warfare 4 might actually help his case. But we'll see a little bit more. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Vancouver Surge because they're planning a pretty hefty rebuild. And then I think for the rest of it, we've got a lot of free agents. So we're going to go and we're just going to kind of go through Rostermania and talk about what players are sitting in those free agent positions, and then we will just kind of build from there. We're going to kind of come up with some roster predictions. I don't anticipate, honestly, any of these real big predictions to be happening, but they are just interesting to talk about kind of as we look at this. I have looked at a bunch of different options already, but we're just going to go ahead and we're going to clear most of these out. We're just going to actually just basically clear out everything except Optic, because I think at this point, Optic are for sure not going to be making a change, and then we can just kind of go and look at each team from there. So Optic, we know, as far as we know, they're not going to be making a change. We're not going to be seeing Optic make a change at all. I mean, I don't see any reason why they wouldn't. They made 9 grand finals in a row on LAN. So for them to make a change would just be overall real silly. FaZe is an interesting one because right now I think we only have it confirmed. No, what they haven't announced free agency yet. So at the moment, I would just assume that O4, Abuza, and Draza are not going anywhere. I think it's also very valid to look at Simp. But this is a very interesting move on this. So there are a lot of teams that are looking to sign Simp. These are all rumors when it comes to Simp. Simp is not a free, as far as we know, Simp is still under contract. So Simp right now is not going anywhere. However, there are a couple rumors. Falcons have opened talks with Simp, but if Simp were to go to Falcons, he said that XNID would have to be dropped. Whether or not that's going to be enough for Falcons to just say, no, sorry, we don't want you, then we're not going to go forward with this. So the Simp is also being looked at for a Gentlemates push. Apparently, they are trying to get Gentlemates are trying to get Simp from FaZe, and they're looking at wanting to sign Simp, who would be along Joe Deceives. So this would mean that at least at this point, Estriel would not be returning to the team. However, Estriel did announce that he's a restricted free agent, so he's still, I think, under contract, but is able to explore his options. Neptune is under that same boat. But we will go ahead and we will talk about Neptune in a moment because he is just a very interesting. Neptune is such an interesting player, and I honestly don't know where he is going to end up. But the big thing that we want to talk about in regards to Simp is that he's been in talks with the Riyadh Falcons. Paris is looking into him. Nothing has been really made, but then there's also been this. Sources have also indicated this could turn into a battle between FaZe and Gentlemates to see who can bring both Simp and Scrap into their rosters. So it looks like the big plays between some of these giants would be for not only Simp, but also Scrap. And when I look at FaZe's roster, I don't really see a reason why they should make a change. FaZe, over the course of the entire year, were one of the strongest teams pretty consistently. They had a rough start in Major 1, but they really honestly brought things back. And I mean, they won champs. And I think Draza really stepped up once Alluka was brought into the mix as a bench player. I think that really made Draza kind of break some of the inconsistencies that he had throughout the season. Because once Alluka got added onto the bench, Draza played really, really well. Now, I think FaZe's weakest player throughout the entire season is mostly Abuza. And I don't even necessarily think Abuza is a bad player. I mean, you look at his stats here: 31 Slayer rating, 7 hardpoint. He was rank 31 in Slayer rating. He was number 7 in hardpoint damage per 10 minutes, 33 overall damage. He had the most goals per 10 minutes in Overload. He overall honestly had a really good season. The biggest thing though that I'm looking at is that Slayer rating. If FaZe is going to want to go back to back and they're going to want to make sure that they can beat Optic consistently, they need to have somebody with better slaying power. And that is where Scrap honestly really comes in as a hefty player. Okay, he was league MVP. He had some of the highest Slayer. He had some of the highest Slayer rating. He was honestly such a massive Slayer AR, and so for him to go onto FaZe would be really the biggest I think the only real upgrade path that FaZe would have. I don't know if this will actually happen. I don't anticipate FaZe really making this strong, like making that kind of a change. I think Abuza is more than likely just going to stay where he is. And I also think Simp is going to stay where he is, honestly. But at the moment, again, we haven't heard anything for confirmation. So we're just going to leave this FaZe team as they are. There's a possibility I could be wrong. With every single one of these changes, there's always a possibility that I could be wrong. Now, we move on to Gentlemates. Gentlemates is an interesting situation as well. The only one who has not been shown as a free agent is Joe Deceives. And I think that's pretty much going to be a pretty solid, confident pick. I don't think Joe Deceives is going anywhere. I don't think there's any reason why. But I mean, it's pretty simple. He was one of the best players in the entire team, if not the best SMG in the game. Honestly, I think Joe Deceives spent way too much time on that Toronto Koi roster going into BO7. Obviously, he was under contract, but unfortunately, he was just kind of in a situation where unless he was dropping 1.4s, Toronto Koi just couldn't win a match. But now, again, there's a ton of rumors. Simp might be looking at going over to Gentlemates. Neptune is a restricted free agent, so he is under contract, but he's free to explore his options. Same thing with Estriel. Neptune and Estriel are interesting. So, Gentlemates dropped Envoy and picked up Estriel. They benched Neptune and brought in Joe Deceives. And I think Estriel is a hard case because I don't know if I would say that Estriel was an upgrade over Neptune. However, I do think that Neptune has been noted as being a pretty rough teammate. And whenever you have teammate problems, that genuinely causes people to not want to play. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see Neptune go somewhere else. But Neptune now just kind of has 2 years of pretty rough interactions between teammates. So it's hard to really know if Neptune is going to stay on Gentlemates or if Neptune gets dropped from Gentlemates, if they will want him to go somewhere else. That is really a massive thing that teams are going to really be thinking about is, are players even going to want to play with Neptune? Are they going to want him on the team despite his talent? He's obviously a very talented player. He was the Major 1 MVP when Gentlemates won it. He is a really, really good player. But those internal issues or external issues outside of the game can really make a big deal for these teams. Estriel, I think he is probably the most underrated player in the league right now. I genuinely think he has been such a strong performer for so many different teams. And I think for him to be looked at underrated and for him to be kind of like thrown under the rug is seriously so criminal. Estriel was a key player in G2 Minnesota's success throughout the year, and I really think that he is going to shine no matter what roster he gets put on. I really want to see him put on a good team because I think if he's on a good team for a whole year, I think he genuinely has a really good shot at winning a championship, even possibly getting a ring if he's got the right people around him. I think he works well to play his role. I think he can be a playmaker when they need him to be, and just overall, he is such a strong player. Now, the next player is Sib. Sib is apparently looking in a different direction because they didn't have a great finish at EWC, nor did they have a really good finish at Champs. Sib so far has not announced that he is a free agent yet, so we don't know about where he is going to end up. I don't expect him to stay on Gentlemates, especially since Gentlemates are going to be looking at getting scrap. Because if Gentlemates can get scrap, then I think that's going to be a really huge pack-a-punch. I think Scrap is going to be one of the biggest players in this Rostermania. I think that's going to be a huge, huge boon for Gentlemates. And Gentlemates have money. You know, they've got money. They can put out the bag. They can do that. And so I think that's just going to be a really solid point. I think there's also some talks about Gentlemates maybe looking at Hydra, but that kind of all just like disappeared, I guess. Um, so Scrap right now, I would expect him to be ending up on the Gentlemates, just purely based off of money and who he will get to play with. Because I think if you got a team like Scrap, like Jodeci's, Estriel, if Estriel stays, I think that these three as a core three is a absolutely amazing combination. Exactly who their fourth could be, I don't know. It's hard to know who the fourth could be because you really want another strong AR that could go alongside them. And there's not a ton of great options for ARs, unfortunately. I You could maybe put in Rencor. I think scrap Rencor. Like Rencor is probably the strongest in that regard because Rencor is also a free agent. They could also look and re-sign Ghosty. He is another option. He kind of struggled in the later half of the season. He had a great first stage, but he really kind of struggled to bring himself back to that ghosty form that we know he's capable of. He had that form on LA Thieves a good chunk of the year. He had that great form in Major 1. I have an entire video talking about his hardpoint performance where he had a 2.4 KD in hardpoint. So I genuinely think that Ghosty has the capability of being a really strong player, just isn't didn't quite have the year that he needed, I think, to really show himself to be it. I think nobody has really brought up Rencor yet in terms of free agents. Rencor is a free agent. That was confirmed by Ronnie, as well as, by Rencor. Rencor being a free agent is huge. Super is a free agent as well, but I don't see a world where they really want to bring Super into this roster. I don't think Super is a bad player at all. I genuinely think he is a really, really good player. And I think he was one of the stronger players on that Miami team. But again, if you want to have a really strong team and you want to be the best, you got to have big slayers. And Super, especially in the early parts of the year, really struggled with his slayer rating and couldn't quite get the kills that he needed to be as strong of a contender as you would want him to be. So I think if you're Gentlemates, I think the best option if you're really looking to upgrade your AR roster is going to be Rencor. Rencor is going to be the best and most available AR, and I think that this just overall is a really solid team. You have Jodeci to be a huge playmaker. You have Estriel to kind of be your support SMG. I think Estriel also can be a playmaker when he needs to be, and then with Scrap and Rencor as your two main ARs, that would be just some absolutely incredible work. I mean, as you can see, Scrap, he's got the hill time, and I think if you put Rencor on the right team, he will genuinely pop off in such an incredible way. So I think I like this for the Gentlemaids. This is what I would like to see from them if they are going to build the strongest team possible. I don't foresee this core four really happening. This is just what I would like to see if Gentlemaids are going to succeed. Now we get into Falcons. Falcons are a very interesting team because currently Falcons, there's rumors that Falcons are looking to sign Simp, but if Falcons do get Simp, that's only barring a XNID exit. Currently, we don't know about, like, Celium has not announced that he's going anywhere, and neither has Kismet. So I think that these two are a pretty safe lock. I think these would both be really strong players. Kismet, I need him to go back under that SMG role that he can be on. When the NPC meta kicked in and they were running 4 NPCs, Falcons looked incredible. I think that they are looking. Was a really, really strong team. Their weakest player was XNID. I don't think XNID is a bad player. I just think that if they do really want to pack a punch, if they were to pack a punch in the best way possible, I would want to see them go a direction maybe like this if they did this route. If they were able to secure Simp, I think this would be a route that would look very strong. Alluka is also just kind of a very do-it-all person, but Alluka has said that he's most likely not going to end up back on the Falcons. He didn't mention anything about him being re-signed or reloaned, whatever that situation looks like with him in FaZe. But right now, Alluka's future is very unknown. But I think with him, he has a strong opportunity to continue to be a Falcon and to really shine. And reuniting Simp and Celium, I think, would be really cool. Because they team together for a long time, so they know how to make it work. So I think between Kismet, MC, Simp, and Alluka, they've got just some really good. This would be a really strong team if they do go this route. I personally don't foresee XNID going anywhere. I think that's honestly kind of a deal breaker because the Falcons really like XNID. They really want him to shine. And I think he has a really strong opportunity to do so. I don't know if looking at this team, they're not going to keep the core four. I think they are going to be making a change. Alluka, I don't expect to stick around on this team. But if they don't keep Alluka, I genuinely don't know who you look for. You know, like if we throw Simp back on FaZe and then we look at the Falcons and look at the free agents that are available, there's not a ton of great options. And I think Falcons shined the best when they did have Alluka on their team. They could maybe look at signing Ghosty, but I would personally, just based on how the end of the year went, I would take Alluka over Ghosty. I would take Sib over Ghosty. I wouldn't take Nasty over Ghosty. Super, no. Like, it's hard to just look at a situation where you don't see Alluka back on this team and this team's still doing well. I honestly think if they reran it with the same four, they would have a genuine possibility of winning champs. I think if they really want to win championships, they need to go this route of dropping XNID. They need to keep Alluka, and they need to bring in either Simp or I think Envoy is another good option. Envoy is another free agent. He is planning on going a different route, or at least G2 is planning on going a different route. So I think if they bring in Envoy, that's another really strong SMG that you can have. And then Alluka is a do-it-all kind of player. Like, he's not somebody who can... like, it was shown. He can run an AR. He can run around with an SMG. He can do it all. And so I think that this would be the route that the Falcons would go. I think this is going to be the strongest route for sure for this team. Now, if we look... So, again, I don't expect this to happen. This is just what I want to see. This is what I want to see for the this is what I want to see for the what's the word? For the Falcons. This is what I'm hoping for. I don't expect it to fully happen, but it's what I want. This is where my heart goes. So as we then continue on, we then can look at the G2. G2, everybody's a free agent except for Kremp. Kremp, I think, is locked in. I don't think G2 see themselves getting rid of Kremp in any way. I don't know what to expect from these guys because there's so many top players on the market. And if G2 want to succeed, I don't know if they're going to be able to snag somebody like Hydra. But I think if they are smart, then they can really push for something like maybe Neptune, or they could even go the route of Pred. There's a ton of options that they have. I'm surprised that they did not re-sign Beans. So, or Nasty is so tough because Nasty had a great year when he was on Boston, and then he went to G2 and he underperformed. So that's just genuinely a really tough situation, and I don't know what you do with Nasty at this point. I don't think Nasty needs to be in challengers, but I also don't want to see him in a Boston Breach hell. So I'm torn on Nasty. I don't know what to do with him. I don't know where to push him. I genuinely I'm stuck on what to do with him. So I don't know. We'll leave him there. The rest of G2, I don't know. I think Abe might be a solid fit. I mean, he didn't do great on Koi or Surge. He had a really rough year. He really underperformed. Lunars is a good option. I think he was the best player on that Surge team. And I think if they were to bring Lunars in and he had the right people around him, he could honestly really grow into a really strong player. So, do I expect him to end up on a G2 team? I don't know. But I think right now I want to put him here because I really want to see him shine. I don't foresee Abe going onto this roster. Also, what the heck is that face, dog? But I I wouldn't be opposed to seeing this roster here. Um I genuinely just don't know. Like maybe you sign Ghosty as your second AR. It's tough, you know, when you have a situation like Ghosty where you have multiple top 6 finishes, you don't have the season that you want after Major 1, then it's like, what do you do with him? So, I think this is not a horrible roster. I don't necessarily love it, but I don't know what else to do with it. So, we're just going to leave it there. No, why did you move to Heretic? You're not going to stay in there. But... All right. Heretics. We have 2 free agents from Heretics. We have Super and Rencor. So right now at the moment, we've got Real and Metals, who their situation is fully unknown. I'm shocked that Metals currently is still on the team. He was the most inconsistent player, I think, out of all of the Heretics. And Real is, again, another weird situation. Real is somebody who did not play well on Koi. And then they moved. He went back to the Heretics, and it didn't go great. They weren't able to fully rebuild. And then EWC, they made it to Grand Finals. So it was such a weird situation for them. And I don't know. Like, I think Real is staying on Heretics at this point. I don't know if there's any other teams that would want him with the performance that he had, but he is an option to consider. Now, the thing to know is how strong these guys' English are. Real has strong enough English, at least. He played on Koi. I don't know anything about Metal's ability to speak English. And so when you look at Spanish speakings, the only other Spanish speaking person that I can think of off the top of my head is Snoopy. I don't know if I necessarily want Snoopy back in the league, but it's something that genuinely, if they're looking at communication and wanting to keep that that same level of excuse me, um, keep that same level of communication, then they would need to look at that route of bringing in um another Spanish speaker. I can't think of another Spanish speaker that could go on this team. So they are going to be a complete wild card for me. I expected them to be a pretty solid wild card anyways, because I just don't know if they're going to want to go out in the direction that they are. But I don't know. I genuinely I don't know who to put here. I don't know. This is gonna stay TBD at this point, and then maybe we can build from there. I also don't want this video to be super long. We still have two more decently strong orgs, and then the poverty orgs where who knows what they're gonna do. So, well, we'll talk about Surge because Surge I guess has some money, but we're gonna leave Carolina, Boston, and Cloud9 on the back burner right now. LA Thieves. They have currently we've got Neum and Abizi. They are still under contract. I don't foresee either of them going anywhere right now. I think they have. I think they both had strong enough seasons. Abizi really popped off once the NPC meta kicked in, and I think they're gonna both be really strong going in MW4. Now, their final two, Hydra is most likely gonna be a free agent. Scrap is most likely gonna be a free agent as well. Scrap is gonna be a difficult one for Thieves to lock down. The Nadeshot has said that he wants to keep both Scrap and Hydra, but with the money that's going to be needed to that, it's going to be really difficult. I think that I think Thieves are most likely not going to end up with Scrap and Hydra again. I personally don't see that happening. I think Hydra has a strong opportunity to end up on the Gentlemates. I think that's a really solid option for where he's going to end up. I know they want him, and Hydra is kind of all over the place right now in his free agency. He's been talked about going on to Optic, but that was shut down. He's been talked about going on to Falcons, Gentlemates. I mean, what team wouldn't want Hydra? I don't know of, like, he is a really strong SMG player. He has 1 ring, 8 chips. He's done such a good job on any team that he's on. So any team would want him, and I don't think Thieves are gonna get him again. I think this is a pretty solid roster for Gentlemates. That's kind of what I would like to see. But again, going back to Thieves, I genuinely don't know who you get. I don't know who you get looking at this. You could maybe look for Insight. You could probably look at Nasty again. But like, you really want another strong AR, somebody who can really do some slaying power. I think Nasty, I'd like to see him on a good team. On its and I'd like to see him perform. It just, we haven't seen him do the things that he needs to do. And I think Thieves are going to be in for a rebuilding year. I don't think they're going to have the same level of super team that they had. Now, what I would like to see, I don't expect it to happen, but what I would like to see is if Thieves go the route of trying to grab Neptune. I think there's opportunities for Neptune to be able to really shine. I think he has the talent to be on a superstar roster, and I think with these as a core 4, I genuinely think they could make a really good run. Nasty would be the one that, if I'm not gonna pack a punt, if I'm not gonna get any of the all-star ARs that are out there, I will want either Nasty or I will want Sib. These are the ARs that I think I would want. Do I expect this roster to happen? No, and that's what we'll talk about when we go to Surge. But this would be, I think, a really strong roster for Thieves to build if they're not able to get Scrap back. Again, I don't expect them to get Scrap back. Unless Scrap really likes Nade Shot, I don't expect that to happen. Okay. Again, same with Neptune. I don't expect that to happen either. Neptune, I genuinely don't know what's going to happen with him. So, Thieves right now, they're going to remain TBD. Now, Surge, they are an interesting team. Okay, so they released their entire roster of Lunars, Craze, Nero, and Mamba. They're all free agents, and they're looking at a ton of rebuilding. They're looking at Pred. They might be looking at Sib. There's a possible look at Skies for them. Those are the main players that they're looking for. I think this is the makings of an okay team. Skies, I'm a little bit worried about because he just did not have a great BO7 season. His BO6 season was not great. However, in MW2, he won champs, so he knows how to win on a Infinity Ward game. And I think that gives him a really strong opportunity to be a really, really great player on any team, really. I think he does well in the Modern Warfare titles, and I think we'll see a different Skies going into Modern Warfare 4. And I think this is the makings of a really strong team. And then when you look at their fourth, the next player that I would really want to see is Lurks. I think he was the best player on Carolina, and I think he just needs the right people around him. In the one season that he was around, Lurks did not have the right people around him. He was playing with players like Exceed. He was playing with players that just overall were not players that were ones that you would want around him. Like, his teammates on Carolina were just not the move. And even looking at EWC, you know, they had Nox, just not... They ran into so many problems over the course of the season, and that's why they were eliminated by the pit at EWC. Like, they just didn't play in the way that you want to see them play. But Lurks himself as a player didn't do bad. I mean, you look at his stats, a 1.05 overall KD, a 1.08 in hardpoint, a 1.03 in overload, and a 0.96 in SND. Like, he genuinely is a good player. He just needs the right people around him to make him better. And I think having this as a core team around him will give him a really strong opportunity to shine. I'm worried that because he had one season in Carolina and Carolina played like crap, that's going to ruin his PR. So, yeah, that's kind of my only real main thoughts around Lurks and the rest of the Surge team. I think this could be a really strong team if it happens. Whether or not it will happen is not up to me, obviously. I'm just a caster, analyst, and creator. So here we are. Then we've got Toronto Koi. Kips has been seen on the timeline eating popcorn. I don't think Kips is going anywhere. I don't think Kleenex is going anywhere. In terms of the ARs, again, I don't foresee Insight coming back. He hasn't announced a free agency yet. But he supposedly, according to Ghost of Hope, they want to build around Kleenex and Kips, and they want to go out and get somebody new for Insight. But again, who you get, I think, is another coin flip. They could go the nasty route. They could go like a Beans, but I don't think that's going to happen. They might go a Mamba route, but Mamba, I love Mamba. My heart really wants to see Mamba on a good team. He did not, when he played well, he played incredibly well. The unfortunate part with Mamba is he did not play really, really well all the time. He popped off at EWC last year, and then he got into G2 and just did not perform in the way that you want him to. And that was really unfortunate. I was so happy when he announced that he was on G2. But I think that it's going to be really difficult for him to land on a good team this year. I don't foresee him going to Toronto Koi. I don't know where you put him. I don't know what you do with a fourth if you do bring in Nasty. Because you got these two SMGs that are both really strong. Oh, Kips is labeled as an AR? If Kips is an AR, then you could really do a lot with that. You could try and bring in Neptune. I mean, granted, at this point, whether you're a main AR or not, I don't think that exists anymore. I think everybody is a flex because SMGs are just too strong. For the pacing of the game, you need everybody to be a flex. And I think Neptune is just a really good option as a playmaker, especially since Kleenex is not the biggest playmaker. But I think if you run this four, this could actually be a really solid team. That's my thought on Koi. Now, I'm not going to talk about Carolina, Cloud9, or Boston at this point. I have zero thoughts with their team. The only one on Boston who's announced a free agent is Afro. I think Afro can be on a really good team, but this team, if this sticks, I'm gonna be shocked. I genuinely am going to be shocked. I don't foresee them all going into challengers, but I don't foresee them being another core three. They might stick around with Purge. I think building around Purge would be a good option because when Purge is on, he's really on. They just really need to build him his consistency. But with rumors that Boston is most likely not even going to be in the league anymore, then we'll see. I don't foresee this team really sticking it out though, so I just keep them completely cleared and we can go from there. So these are the main reports for these teams and what is to be expected. I don't know what to expect with some of them, but these are just kind of my theories so far on teams going into the future. I think the Falcons are actually, if we go back to Falcons, because I don't foresee them keeping Alluka. Again, I just don't know what we're gonna get out of this squad. Falcons are a complete wild card. Um, so who knows? This is just kind of what I'm expecting right now. I doubt we'll see any major changes from any of these other teams, but that's going to be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to try and do at least like once a week updates on Rostermania. If there are updates, if there's not an update, then I'll just post on Twitter and let you guys know, and I might post something in the community tab. But with that, that's going to be the end of this one. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Make sure you guys like and subscribe so you can stay up to date, and we will see you later for the next drama-free Rostermania update in Call of Duty. Have a good day, everybody.